The clock struck 10 p.m., and my wife's phone started to ring incessantly. Her fingers frantically tapped the screen, trying to reach her ex-boyfriend. My suspicions were confirmed when I saw her outgoing calls on our shared app. A sense of panic consumed me. Why was she calling him at this hour? Without hesitation, I grabbed her laptop and scrolled through her messages, feeling guilty but also justified, as we were married with children and her behavior was concerning. After the 4 missed calls, she had sent a desperate message. "I won't stop until you pick up and talk to me like a normal human being." The words hit me like a ton of bricks, stirring up a mix of anger and hurt. What was going on between them? Why did she feel the need to contact him in such an urgent manner? Questions swirled in my mind as I tried to make sense of the situation. Despite my agitation, I couldn't deny the sinking feeling in my gut that something was wrong. As I probed her about the call, she shifted uncomfortably in her seat and avoided my gaze. But when I pulled out the app and showed her the evidence of her outgoing calls, she couldn't hide the truth any longer. With a defeated sigh, she admitted that she did try to reach him. When I asked why, she hesitated before revealing that she was attempting to call him back. But as I dug deeper and revealed that she had also written to him after calling, she insisted that she hadn't written anything to him. I then displayed the message that she had sent to him, and her face flushed with embarrassment as she confessed that he had called her while drunk and rambled on unintelligibly. In response, she had told him off and hung up, but later, feeling guilty for her harsh words, she tried calling him 4 more times, only to be met with silence. Desperate for closure, she resorted to writing what would now be an unanswered message. "I am at a loss for words when it comes to this situation." It all started around the same time that she stopped being physically intimate with me. She seems unfazed by the situation, claiming that it's not strange or concerning for her to have kept it from me. To her, it holds no significance. But I can't ignore the fact that any communication with an ex is a red flag in my book. It's something I cannot tolerate or accept. The question lingers, is she being unfaithful? Our lack of intimacy for the past 6 months aligns with the time frame of these calls. Update number 1. I am grateful for all of your thoughtful opinions and perspectives. At first, I was in complete disbelief at the overwhelming consensus that my wife is indeed cheating on me. It felt like something out of a science fiction movie, something that could never happen to me. My wife would never do such a thing, or so I thought. But today, everything changed, and what was once just speculation became an undeniable fact. I feel foolish for being one of those people who trusted blindly, but I suppose this is a harsh reality of life. As promised, I had planned to confront her ex and speak with her family about the situation, but now I am reconsidering and taking a more cautious approach. Perhaps it is better to observe and strategize before making any moves. It seemed almost too good to be true how effortlessly I discovered the truth. All it took was a small, inconspicuous voice, activated recorder, planted in our car, and 3 short days for it to capture all the damning evidence. She used the car for her daily routines, work, workouts, and meeting up with him. The details aren't entirely clear, but I heard every word that was exchanged between them over 2 separate phone calls. They spoke as if they held some forbidden secret between them, discussing intimate topics like sex and their personal lives. Their conversation flowed easily, filled with inside jokes and an undeniable attraction that reminded me of my own relationship with my wife when we first met 9 years ago. But now that spark has faded from my own marriage, leaving a void that this betrayal only highlights. And to make matters worse, they even talked about making plans for a vacation together. She wants to visit him this July. My mind reels at the thought of her planning a future with another man, giving him just 2 years to move back to our country and be with her. It's almost unbearable to believe, but I can't deny what I heard on those recordings. After listening to an hour-long recording of this disturbing conversation, I feel overwhelmed and in need of processing. I've already scheduled a meeting with my attorney next week to discuss this further, but before anything else, I just want to thank you. You opened my eyes to the truth and helped me uncover the deception that has been going on. If it wasn't for your advice, I would have never bought the voice recording device. Right now, I need to take some time to calm down and clear my head. My main concern is my children and how their mother's actions have affected them. It all started in September last year, but it took me 2 months to notice changes in her behavior. In the meantime, I will be taking care of my elderly father in another city for the whole week. This means that my wife will not be going to work and instead will be using my home office. She will most likely be making phone calls from there as well. Do you think I should place the recorder in the office for the next week? Or do you think I have enough evidence already? Update number 2. At this moment, I am presented with undeniable proof that our problems are not rooted in the reasons she presents to those around us. She claims that I am not enough or that she carries all the weight of housework. It is a classic, pure act of infidelity. It began in September of last year, so I have been out of the picture for quite some time. Currently, she has no desire to spend any time with me in our rented apartment. She always has an excuse to run off and visit her parents, aunt, friends, etc. Sometimes, she will even retreat to bed when we put our young children to sleep. The recordings speak for themselves. She admits her love for this other man and expresses a desire to visit him and engage in sexual activities. They discuss his anatomy at length, and she even declares her intentions to leave me soon and become his wife. She goes as far as mentioning their favorite sexual position, proving that they have indeed been intimate. I am trapped in a precarious situation, one that only I seem to be aware of. My wife and I are facing marital troubles, but she is not disclosing the full extent of our issues to her family and friends. They believe it to be a temporary crisis, unaware of the looming threat of divorce. She comes from a devout Catholic family and attends church every Sunday, giving off the facade of a perfect marriage. However, we live in a small town with a population of only 20,000 people where everyone knows each other's business. Recently, we built a house together, but it remains unfinished, mirroring the state of our relationship. It is clear to me that my wife is suffering and can no longer stand living with me in our apartment. Her body language and avoidance of any meaningful conversation reveal her inner turmoil. She wants me out as soon as possible so that the affair partner can move into our home and join her in raising our 2 young boys. In a recorded conversation between them, she even mentions giving him 2 years to return to our country before making plans for their future together. She believes that society will understand her need for a father figure for her children and will not object. The affair partner, her very first love, had been with her for a solid 7 years before she married me. Despite being together for 9 years now, the affair partner lives abroad and only returns to our country on frequent visits. I refuse to be manipulated in this way. I have sought out the help of an attorney and will soon meet with him to discuss my options. With the evidence I have collected, I could easily tarnish her reputation by sharing bits of the recording with anyone who would listen. Please, any advice would be greatly appreciated. How do I handle being served papers from her? My attorney has informed me that my own preparations will take at least a month. It's still hard to believe that I am caught up in a situation with such a monstrous individual. Update number 3. After meeting with the attorney, I gained some valuable insights. It turned out that pursuing a scorched earth approach towards my ex-wife would not be wise. This is partly due to the fact that we have children together and will have to co-parent for the next 15 to 16 years. Another reason is my respect for her family. I do not want to involve them in our divorce proceedings as witnesses. Additionally, seeking custody of the kids would most likely not go in my favor because they are young and currently living with their mother in a small town 1 hour away from me in the capital city. Even if I were granted visitation rights, I would only get to see them every other weekend. Finally, I would not be able to sell our house without permission because it is their current home and they deserve good living conditions. The place we are currently living in belongs to her father and is only temporary. As unfortunate as it may sound, this is the reality of divorce in Poland. After our discussion, the attorney sent over the necessary paperwork, which was scheduled to be delivered right after Easter. I pretended everything was fine at the dinner table, thanks to the help of some alcohol. On my day off from work, I spent the day caring for my 1-year-old son, while my wife commuted to her job an hour away in the capital city. With the help of my brother, we moved all of our belongings out of our apartment and into his car. That same day, I received a delivery of divorce papers, an invitation to mediation, so we could dissolve our marriage and divide our assets amicably. The document stated that she was in a relationship with another man as the reason for our impending divorce. I had evidence to support my claims, which would be useful when negotiating child support and other matters. When she returned home, I confronted her and explained that I knew everything and had concrete proof. I also expressed how deeply hurt I was by her actions and asked her to contact my lawyer. Then, I handed her the divorce papers and left to visit her parents. She immediately began questioning me about what I knew and how I found out, but I stood firm in my decision. Her parents were shocked, but believed me, and I recorded their reactions as instructed by my lawyer. Before leaving for the capital city, I called a friend who helped spread the news to her acquaintances. I made sure to discuss with her parents whether they thought I was a good husband and father, securing their approval so she couldn't use them as witnesses against me in court. They understood the gravity of the situation and how it had impacted not only our lives but those of our children as well. Grateful for their understanding, I thanked them before heading to the capital city. After 2 hours, my brother-in-law gave me a call. He told me that my wife had confessed to having an affair with the affair partner but denied any physical intimacy. He also revealed that everyone was on my side and that she had torn apart our family. Her sister even visited her and confronted her about how wrong her actions were. However, my brother-in-law reassured me that everything could be fixed. After all, he too had cheated on his spouse, and they had managed to reconcile and are now happily married. Then, her father called and admitted that it was all her fault and that she was blind to the damage she caused. He promised to cut off financial support for her and even tried reaching out to the affair partner, who didn't answer. He ended the conversation by saying he believes our marriage can still be saved. Lastly, her other sister sent me a supportive text, but once again expressed belief in salvaging our relationship. I strongly disagree with the idea that our relationship can be salvaged. I fear that my spouse may use the fact that there is no sex tape as an excuse to stay with me, even though my reasons for leaving are valid. I have recordings of her saying things like, "Make sure you can last more than 3 seconds when I visit you in Holland. I wonder if your dad's penis looks like yours. I'll go ask that woman how long your brother's penis is and tell her how long yours is. I love you. I'm going to leave my husband. Please record yourself and send me a video. Your favorite position is doggy style with your back straight. Let me show you what our life together will look like. You have 2 years to move back here." This, along with her lack of emotions towards me for the past 7 months, and her admission that she never stopped loving him after being confronted about the affair, is enough evidence for me. However, now that her family has intervened, she is crawling back to me. She sends texts saying, "I didn't know what I was doing. I can't imagine living without you. I'm sorry for everything, and the kids and I are waiting for you to come back." She also claims that she never actually loved him as much as she loves me. It makes me doubt filing for divorce, because I do not have physical proof of their affair, and she denies having slept with him. It's possible since he lives in Holland, but he could have visited her here as well. Update number 4. After receiving the divorce papers, many of you predicted that she would try to win me back in front of our family and seek my help with our 2 little boys. And it happened. She started messaging me more frequently on Messenger, confessing her love for me and sending photos of our children with messages like "We miss you" and "Love you so much." However, it's been 5 weeks now, and she still hasn't called me or visited me once. She had several opportunities to see me as she drove by my parents' house, where I currently live. The only communication we've had is through occasional messenger texts. We have met a couple of times to exchange the kids, but she didn't apologize or make any efforts to patch things up, just a simple greeting and goodbye. After my wife's infidelity, her family began to reach out to me more frequently. Her father called me twice, and her mother bombarded me with texts and Christian links about forgiveness. One sister apologized for my wife's actions and blamed it on an evil spirit possessing her. The other sister expressed disappointment in my wife and didn't expect me to return to her. Even my brother-in-law took me out for a beer to discuss what happened and what could happen in the future if I don't go back to my wife. But despite their efforts, I made up my mind and told my lawyer to proceed with the divorce. My terms were presented, and we're now waiting for a response from her lawyer. As I wait, her sister has shifted the blame onto me, accusing me of killing the marriage by choosing to divorce. She claims that my wife was selfish, but is now remorseful and crying, regretting her actions. According to her, I am now the selfish one for not forgiving and staying together for the sake of our children. She believes that my anger will only grow over time and urges me to just suck it up and continue living with my wife. In her eyes, this divorce is not only revenge on my wife, but also on our kids. I can't wrap my head around it. I was aware of the impending situation, that her family would turn against me and things would start to shift, but it's still a shock. For a moment today, I felt guilty for everything, for my wife treating me poorly for over 6 months, for her abandoning me emotionally and physically, and for wanting to leave me. They're really swaying me, but I won't change my mind. Now they're painting me as the villain who's abandoning his kids. I thought about countering their argument by proposing my own terms to get back together, things she will most likely reject. I don't love her anymore, but I'd do it for our children because I love them dearly. We wouldn't have a marriage, just a partnership with separate finances. She would have to leave her hometown and move with the kids to the capital city where I live. She would also have to agree to have a GPS tracker in her car until she stops driving in her old age, along with daily phone check. All of this would be after I get 7 months to date other women freely. And if I were to cheat during the relationship, I wouldn't hesitate to hide it from her. At that point, there would be no marriage anyway. What do you think? It's just an idea, nothing serious. I probably won't go through with it, but it's the only way I can think of to shut down her family's accusations of me abandoning our kids. In Poland, young children like ours must be near their mothers in case of divorce. Unfortunately, due to the fact that she lives an hour away from me and our kids attend school and daycare there, we can't share custody 50-50. Instead, I'll become an every other weekend dad with additional access whenever I want. It's heartbreaking and painful, but it is what it is. Update number 5. It has been 2 months since I confronted my wife and served her divorce papers. I left our small town and moved to the capital, where I am currently living with my parents. My bed is a couch in their living room, and my makeshift workspace and entertainment area is the dining table. Clothes are scattered on every available chair. During the day, I work from home for 8 hours before helping my elderly parents with household tasks. I also take care of grocery shopping and driving them to doctor appointments. To get away from negative thoughts about my failed marriage, I go to the gym or watch movies at the cinema. I am able to see my children every weekend. My wife drops them off and I bring them back to my place. Spending time with them brings me true happiness. To ensure that they are indeed mine, I did a paternity test, and there is no doubt in my mind that they are my biological sons. The situation with the divorce terms is complicated and uncertain. Since I am currently living with my parents and have 2 children, I don't have any other place to live. As a result, I am asking for a significant amount of money from my wife, in addition to her taking over the mortgage for our house. However, she has only offered 1/3 of the amount I requested, claiming it is the amount that I put into building the house. Yet, I am not at fault for our divorce and need financial support to find a new home. This disagreement is still being discussed through our attorneys. The reason she is offering such a small amount is because she wants to keep the house, but there are talks that she may be forced to sell it. This should have been done from the start because she will not be able to afford both the mortgage and me. We still need to come to an agreement on other financial matters, such as child support payments. She is requesting too much in this area as well. Additionally, she believes I should be responsible for picking up the kids from their small town and driving them back by the end of each weekend, which requires a lot of time and fuel. In reality, it should be her dropping them off and me picking them up. It's clear that she should take responsibility for these things, yet she continues to argue about the divorce terms. Last Sunday, her sister invited me to their daughter's communion. I attended so I could spend more time with my boys. Everyone in the family knows that my decision to divorce is final, so they didn't try to talk to me about it. Instead, I focused on taking care of my boys while everyone else enjoyed drinks and food at the table after the ceremony. During one conversation, my wife asked if my decision was truly final. I responded calmly that it was and nothing would change it. I wanted to spend as much time with our boys as possible. She then expressed remorse and regret for her actions. She claimed she ended the affair, went to a priest, and left it in God's hands. I told her that I didn't care about her priest, and that if anyone should confess, it should be to me. Her attempts at redemption were laughable to me. I gave her a chance to tell me the truth and asked how many times she had sex with the other man. She denied having any physical contact with him, but I brought up the party she had organized in November, where she rented a hotel instead of staying at a friend's place. This made her go numb, and she could only ask why I continued to torture myself with these questions. I explained that if she truly felt remorseful, she wouldn't continue lying months after we separated. I gave more examples of situations where she had lied about her actions with the other man, particularly over video chat. She couldn't even remember how many times they did it. My wife tried to imagine us getting back together, but realized there would be no trust between us, just constant suspicion on my part. Our son interrupted the conversation, and it came to an end. Before leaving, I reminded her that by cheating on me, she also cheated on our 2 wonderful sons. This statement destroyed her, and she yelled at me not to say such things in front of the kids again. It's ironic because her sister has told me about my wife's daily suffering and tears due to all of this. She puts on a facade in front of the family, but she continues to lie to me. She even had the audacity to say that if she wanted, she could be with her affair partner, and her family wouldn't be able to do anything about it, as if I should be grateful that she ended things with him, and now has the power to choose not to be with him. Thank you for the support you've given me. I'll stay strong and eventually clean up this mess. Unfortunately, I don't think it will end well for my sons, and they may need some help from a psychologist, but I'll always be there for them. Update number 6. After weeks of negotiation, our lawyers have reached an agreement and the divorce will soon be finalized. My ex-wife will keep the unfinished house, and the mortgage is now solely her responsibility. It's for the sake of our children, as I don't want anyone to say I forced the sale of the house out of revenge for her infidelity. Honestly, I have no desire to live in that small town, an hour away from where I am now in the capital city. But at least I'm getting back what I invested into the house, which isn't too bad, and the amount of child support is also reasonable. We've also agreed that she will drop off the kids at my place in the capital city every other weekend. As much as I love seeing my kids almost every weekend, it's still not enough for me. The pain of being apart from them is almost unbearable at times. I refuse to let my 1- and 3-year-old boys grow up without a father just because their mother couldn't control herself. Unfortunately, due to the laws in Poland, I can't have primary custody of them. Maybe I'll have to start driving there during the week just to see them more often and survive this heartache. Despite her constant messages of love and regret, she had still cheated on me and caused so much pain. She even offered to let me check her phone, move to the city and tell me every detail about the affair in hopes of winning me back. But something must have changed for her. Someone must have said something to make her feel remorseful. She's willing to do anything now, but it's hard for me to trust her words when she has already betrayed me. I can't deny that her words affect me and tempt me with the thought of our boys growing up in a bigger city. But the wound she caused heals slowly, and I know deep down that ending this relationship is the right thing to do. I will continue on this path, and one day I hope to find true happiness without her. Update number 7. As I reflect on the past 6 months since D-Day, my mind is constantly bombarded with the same questions every day. Do I still have feelings for her? Could I possibly go back to her, just for the sake of our children? Is it worth going back to her small town and finishing the house we started? But most importantly, can I live with myself in 5 to 10 years, knowing what she did? The resounding answer to all of these questions is a definite no, without any hesitation. As much as I love my children and long to see them every day, I cannot force myself to love her again. She may want me back, but I know that I cannot return to our old life. Despite my desires, I cannot forget about everything that has happened. I gave her a chance to start over in my city with our children, but she refused. She said she had her family's support in the small town and didn't want to sell our house because she wanted our kids to have something for their future. I tried to explain that it's not about the physical building, but about our family, her, me, and our children, but she remained silent. That's when I realized there was no longer an us. We could only come to a mutual agreement. There was no room for compromise. I made it clear that I couldn't continue living in the small town where the affair began. And I definitely couldn't bear the thought of living just 1 mile away from her affair partner's family home. He may live abroad, but he still visits his family 2 to 3 times a year. After that, the conversation ended. I hate the small town, and she refuses to move to the capital. That's the end of it. As an example of her approach to situations, we agreed that I would take the money I invested in the house while she would keep the building for our children. However, She now has a problem with this arrangement because of one clause in our agreement that forbids her from selling the house until our children reach adulthood in Poland. If she was to sell before then, she would have to split the profits equally between us. She argues that this is unfair since she plans to use her own funds to finish the renovations, and if she were to sell later on, I would receive half of a much more expensive finished property. But when I asked why selling was even a consideration, she said she couldn't predict what her life would be like. This lack of trust makes me lean towards just selling the building altogether. However, it's difficult for me to come to terms with letting go of a home meant for my children's future. Final update. After talking with her, I laid out my 2 conditions for our marriage to work: moving to the capital city and severing all ties with a fair partner and his family. She understood the second condition, but was resistant to the first, citing the high cost of rent and the convenience of having friends and family nearby for help with the kids. I can see her point, as our children seem happy in their current environment and we pay very little for childcare since it's owned by her sister. However, I remain firm in my decision not to live in the small town. We have reached a compromise where I will continue to visit often and take the children to Warsaw every other weekend. She assures me she will not seek out another partner and will wait for me, but ultimately, it doesn't matter to me. The most important thing is that our children have me as their father figure and not some stranger. It's a difficult situation, but I stand my ground on this matter. During our conversation, she made it clear that she feels no remorse for her actions. When I asked why she had only sent me texts and never called during our separation, she claimed she was too busy with her 2 children. She declared that she would never mention the affair again and refused to share any more details when I inquired about them. She blamed me for telling her family some information she didn't want them to know and said she wouldn't share anything else with me. According to her, the other person involved had been writing to her for years, but she always rejected him. However, last year, because of my passive behavior, she decided to start the affair with him. Her justification made me sick, and when I expressed my disgust, she dismissed my feelings and accused me of only caring about myself. Today, I received a message from her stating, "I need an answer to my question. I don't want to ask it in person, because we always end up yelling at each other. You've already expressed your thoughts on who I am and what I've done, but I don't want to keep talking about it. So, tell me, do you want to forgive me and start fresh, or is it clear that you will never be able to forgive me and will never come back to our relationship? Please take some time to think about it, and let me know if you still want our marriage or not." What does this mean? In my opinion, she doesn't have the right now to demand such specific answers from me. Perhaps there is someone else involved, and she needs to clarify things with me before moving on. I replied that I am worth more than just a conversation through messaging, and that we should talk in person soon. This is where this story comes to an end. The official poster hasn't added any more updates to this story in his profile. However, there is one post where he seeks dating advice as a single father of 2 children. So, it seems after all, he didn't settle for that marriage and moved on with the divorce. If you have reached this far, please take a moment to press the like button and subscribe to my channel. It takes a lot of effort and editing to compile these stories in their true form. For each update, I have to dig deeper to find the closure. Moreover, I aim to keep these stories as real as possible to maintain the true essence. So, if you like my content and are not yet subscribed, please do. It matters a lot to me.